Imagine this scenario. You own and manage a hostel in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. One day a customer comes downstairs and claims that his phone's been stolen from his room. And then he accuses your Cambodian staff of stealing his phone. How do you deal with that situation? Hi, my name's Richard John Curry. Back in 2016, I owned and managed a hostel in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. The number one rule that we had at the hostel was no outside visitors are allowed inside your room. What that means is no prostitutes are allowed inside your room. And the reason is simple. Sometimes customers take prostitutes back to the room. There's a dispute over money. Maybe the girl steals the guy's phone or his money, and then a fight or an argument will ensue. And this can be a very ugly situation if you own a hostel, and it's up to management to deal with it. It's simply not worth the headache. So we constantly enforce this rule with customers. We had a customer that stayed with us called Klaus. He was in his mid-60s, from Germany. I didn't like the guy. He was egotistical, he was arrogant, he was obnoxious, but it was low season and Klaus was an alcoholic, which meant he spent a lot of money at the bar. And when you're struggling to pay your bills at the end of the month, these are the kind of big fish that you need staying with you so you can make lots of profit. Klaus stayed with us for about 2 weeks, and every single day without fail he approached me at the bar and asked if he could take a prostitute back to his room. And each and every time I reinforced the rules to Klaus and I told him you're not allowed any outside visitors to your room, so he knew what the rules were. One day I was stood at the bar and Klaus came running up to me in a flustered state. According to Klaus, someone had stolen his mobile phone from his room. Klaus was staying in what we call a box room. There was no windows, there was a single bed and a fan, and the only way to get into the room was through the main door. Now, according to Klaus, he went out the night before, got drunk, came home at 1 o'clock in the morning, opened the door to his room, closed the door, then locked it, put his mobile phone on his pillow, and then went to sleep. And when he woke up in the morning, his mobile phone was missing and the door was still locked. This was an extremely perplexing situation. We only had 2 keys for each room. One key we give to the customers and they keep at all times. The second key is a backup key, and that was behind the counter underneath the bar as a backup key just in case the customers lost the main key. So how on earth did somebody get into Klaus's room, open the door, steal his phone, and then lock the door again? We couldn't figure it out. Klaus was high as a kite. He started screaming and shouting, "I want my phone back, I want my phone back." And then he pointed at our Cambodian staff and he accused the staff of stealing his phone. This was an ugly situation to deal with. We had several customers at the bar. Some people were looking to check in, and then Klaus is shouting and screaming, saying his phone got stolen, and then accusing my staff of stealing his phone. So I had to defuse this immediately. I told Klaus, "You go back to your room, I'll speak to my staff and I'll find out if they've seen anything." Then Klaus starts shouting, "I want the police to come, your staff stole my phone, everyone's looking over." It was embarrassing, it was stressful. So I reinforced to Klaus, "Go back to your room and I'll find out what actually happened." My first priority was to speak to the Cambodian staff. I had to find out what happened. When I spoke to them, I didn't make any accusations. I just said to them, "Did you see anything last night? Did you hear anything this morning?" Nobody'd seen a thing. And that's when I started to get really confused. How on earth did somebody break into Klaus's room, open the door with a key, close the door, lock it? It was just a perplexing situation and I couldn't figure it out. Eventually I spoke to the nighttime security guard and he told me a very interesting piece of information. The night before, at 1 o'clock in the morning, Klaus had came back to the hostel, rang the buzzer. When the nighttime security guard opened the gate, Klaus was standing there with a prostitute. The nighttime security guard reminded Klaus, no outside visitors allowed in the hostel. But Klaus would not be deterred. He pulled out $10, bribed the nighttime security guard who allowed this prostitute into Klaus's room. The woman rendered her services, and then 2 hours later she left. Now, it doesn't take a genius or a first-class detective to figure out what happened. Klaus had picked up the prostitute from the streets, took her back to the hostel. They engaged in a little ooh la la. Klaus passed out. The woman picked up his phone in her pocket, and then she left the hostel. Case closed. About 10 minutes later, Klaus came downstairs and moseyed up to the bar, and he said to me, "Did you find out who stole my phone?" And I said, "Yeah, I found out who stole your phone." And he said, "Well?" And I said to Klaus, "Did you take a prostitute back to your room last night?" And he didn't deny it. He just went, "Yeah, and?" And I said, "Well, Klaus, I think I know who stole your phone." The implication being the prostitute stole his phone. And Klaus immediately defended this woman. And he said, "No, this woman was an angel. She really liked me. She wouldn't do this to me." And I said to Klaus, "So your story is," I just want to get this clear in my head. Your story is, you went out last night, got blind drunk, picked up a prostitute from the streets, took her back to the hostel, did your deed with the prostitute, she left, your phone was still there, you locked your room door, and then you woke up in the morning and your phone was missing. I said, that's your story. The situation between me and Klaus got very ugly. He's defending the prostitute, then accusing my staff of stealing his phone. I'm reinforcing to Klaus, it wasn't my staff, it was the prostitute that stole your phone. This went on for about 10 minutes. Then Klaus threw down the gauntlet. He demanded that I phone the police. And I said to Klaus, "You want the police to come?" "Yes, I want the police to come." So I told him very simply, "I'll call the police and I'll get the police down here. But I'm going to tell the police that you picked up a prostitute and took her back to your room." What do you think the police are going to say about that? I think at this point Klaus must have known the situation was futile. Deep down, he must have known the prostitute stole his phone, but he was too arrogant, he was too obnoxious, and he was too pig-headed to admit it. He basically lowered his head and went back to his room. This story is a classic example about why you should never ever allow guests to take prostitutes back to their rooms. It never ends well. Stuff gets stolen or there's a fight, and it's a headache to deal with. So if you do own and manage a hostel in Southeast Asia, don't allow customers to bring prostitutes back to their rooms. It's not worth the headache. Well, that's the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you enjoy my crazy stories, check out my book, Burning Brain Cells in Cambodia. It's available to buy on Amazon as a digital book or paperback. I'll put the link in the comment section below. And until next time, Jim Riblia.